Hi, and welcome back to the House Gas. If you're new here, this is the part of the conversation where real questions from real homeowners get answered by professionals who are experts in design, building, and construction. This week, we're revisiting our conversation with Matt Panella, a builder and remodeler based out of Central California, and specifically the part where he tackled a few design dilemmas from the house community. If you haven't heard the full episode yet, go back. Trust me, there is so much to take from it, so much to learn to protect your home and your family. It's a good one, trust me. But this stands on its own. Let's get into it. Okay, perfect. So the first one is SIP construction versus stick construction from Design Mom of Two. And they ask, hi, I'm looking for a comparison between SIP and stick construction for a custom home. House will be built in the LA County on an almost flat land and will be a simple box-like structure with 2 levels totaling between 18 and 1900 square feet. Is this info enough to get a general idea of the differences in the two forms of building? Please share any recommendations.
So the difference, what they're asking for is stick-built construction, assembling a wall with a bottom plate, studs, everything else, and then going up to a roof system with either rafters or a truss system versus a SIPS panel, which is a big prefabricated offsite. It's done in a warehouse somewhere. And it's a pre-insulated structural setup that has everything you need. You could simply drop it on top of the building and the roof
Oh,
is complete.
okay.
It's incredible. They're really energy efficient, but what it comes down to, you pay for it one way or the other. Similar to how if you have a traditional rafter system versus a truss system, the material is cheaper for rafters, but the labor is more intensive. Whereas trusses, they're pre-built, expensive from the get-go, but they go up a lot easier. The same way with SIPS panels, the roof is going to cost you a fortune. I just looked into this for my A-frame cabin, and I was going to do SIPS panels, but it worked out to being a little bit more expensive, and I didn't get to do all the fun stuff of building the whole thing. Personally, if I wasn't building it and I had a very simple design that I knew wouldn't require a bunch of changes in the field, I think
Mm.
SIPS panels can be incredible. But when it comes to custom homes, modification is kind of the name of the game. We get into it and you want to change this, that, or the other. SIPS panels don't allow for a ton of modification just due to the fact that they're a pre-manufactured off-site material. As opposed to trusses or a roof system that we're building out, I can make those changes in the field pretty easy. So I think it comes down to how straightforward, how energy efficient you need this thing to be, and how pre-planned you are. If your planning is good and your team is good, run SIPs and just know that you're going to spend that cost on the manufacturing of those as opposed to the labor of building it out traditionally.
Oh, okay. I run many of things in that. Number one, it's not SIP, it's SIPs. Love that. Okay, let's go on to the next one. This question comes from Nicholas, and they ask, we are building a house and I was wondering, what is the typical for idle time of the house? Are hours, I'm guessing they say, sits idle with no workers for 80% of the time. Someone is usually there 2 days every 2 weeks or so. What do you think? I see you shaking your head, Matt. Is this normal? Is this common?
That's horrible. No, that's way too long, the thing's just sitting. There's phases, right? In construction, we have to get our underground taken care of. Grading will start, and then we move into foundation, and there's plumbers involved, electricians involved, and then inspections, we pour. Framing begins. After framing, everybody comes in for rough in. There is stuff to do at all times. Now, that said, I wouldn't tell homeowners that you're going to have somebody on site every single day until this thing is complete, but a few down days here and there aren't going to kill you. It could be I finished framing and you're waiting on an inspection. I don't want anybody else in because I'm not even through with the inspection yet. If I have corrections and I have an electrician in there or a plumber in there, it's going to be a mess. But
Yeah.
there's no reason why a project should be sitting for 80% of the time without somebody being there. There's no excuse for that whatsoever.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned this earlier, the communication at least should be there, right? You should know
Absolutely.
why if something is up, if something isn't going to plan, that should be communicated.
2 days of work every 2 weeks, your house isn't going to be built for a couple of years. That's
Yeah.
horrible. I would definitely be
Yeah.
asking some questions. Why are we having this holdup? What's the next step? Where is, our next inspection? Why are we facing these delays at all?
Yeah, no, those are so good. Nicholas, write them down. Please let us know what the response is. Okay, let's go on to the next one. This one comes from Kelly P. And she writes, new construction home is being finished this week. Do you have, Matt, a checklist that you use to do a personal walkthrough on top of the professional inspection, obviously, before exchanging keys?
There's a lot of them that you can get online that'll run you through stuff, but traditionally, we just sold a house. We closed escrow today, so it's a big congratulations to us. I'm
Woo!
stoked. But it's as simple as, I took my wife up there. I'm like, hey, this project's done. Let's go walk the thing. And I didn't ask her to do a whole lot of anything other than just run the whole entire house through a workflow that you would have. Let's go turn on the washer and dryer. Let's go turn on the sink, run the dishwasher, every light switch, all of your outlets, make sure the thing functions. You're going
Yeah,
to have a professional inspector that comes through and checks for code violations and checks for, any system errors that aren't going to work. But you yourself, I think, run the HVAC, look for damage to drywall finishes, things that are going to impact your day-to-day life in that home. And if there's anything that does come up, bring that to their attention. But I think that a lot of homeowners try to overstep and get into that inspector phase where they're trying to say, hey, I'm not happy with insulation up here. There's professional inspectors for this.
yeah.
Let them come in, do their job, and if something's wrong, they'll call it out. But I would just run through the houses if you normally would, run everything, plug in every outlet, and see if anything goes south.
That's a brilliant idea. Thank you so much
We
for that.
we did that same exact thing on the last house, and I was able to catch. I had an outlet that wasn't working, and I don't know what happened with it. It fried or something like that. But we were able to swap that, and that was the only thing in the house that didn't function the way that I wanted it to. So little things like that. That's how you're going to get through it.
Yeah, that's so helpful. Okay, let's go on to the next one. This one comes from Sandra S. And it reads, I'm 75 years old and will probably be selling in 5 or so years. Should I replace the deck or just patch it up? Would the new deck be a good return on investment?
I think it depends on how bad the deck is currently. You can get an ROI on things like this, but a deck right now is very expensive. It's not cheap to replace. I think it would come down to, is the deck functional but not cosmetically the best looking thing on the house? If so, maybe patch a couple areas that you need to. But my concern wouldn't be so much the ROI, rather the safety. When you go to sell a property, you
Oh,
have people that are trying to look for something to leverage, an issue with
mhm.
the home that they can make a really big issue and say, hey, this deck is not good. We need to replace this. And then they're going to be fighting you for either credits on the home sale, a discounted price, have it replaced before it's done. If the deck is not completely falling down and it's functional as is, I would clean it up, maybe paint it, stain the deck boards, and replace anything that you need to. But I would definitely not do a full rebuild unless it was a safety hazard.
And also for the Sandra, right? That's still going to be in the property for the next few years if it's a safety hazard as well.
Absolutely. You have handrails and stuff that are falling down. That's horrible. So comes from a safety standpoint rather than an ROI. But once you get into selling the property, if they can leverage that and say, hey, this deck's bad, you're going to end up spending a lot getting it replaced as quick as possible so that the
Yeah.
home sale moves through. And I always like to think of it, why let a $15,000 item like a deck ruin, say, a $750 million sale?
And that's a wrap on this week's Design Dilemmas. If this got you thinking, great. Go back and listen to the full conversation with Matt Panella. There is a lot more where this came from. I'm Dorcas Adewole. See you next week.